I'm going to be joined now by Vix from Fox Williams, and we're going to talk about delivering advanced solutions to partners and senior management. And I can see Vix has popped up just in time. So if anybody has any questions for Vix during this session, please use the Q&A feature, and we'll have some time towards the end to answer any questions that are submitted. Okay, and Vix, so shall we kick off by you introducing yourself?
Hi, everyone. So, yes, as Ian's kindly said, I am the management exec at Fox Williams, which essentially means I actually run the place. And I'm sure the senior team would agree with that. So, and if you ask them, they will definitely agree. But look, my role basically focuses on strategic initiatives and operational efficiencies within the business. And I really focus on kind of our firm's international engagements as well. But my role over the last couple of years has really started to kind of cross across all areas of the business. So focusing not only just on what the lawyers do, but also on what our business services teams do. And one of the key thing for me is kind of looking at innovation and how we integrate that within the business and make things kind of more easy for everyone, not only the partners, but also the junior associates coming through who love AI and innovation and everything tech, but kind of making sure that it's user friendly for everyone and how we integrate that into the business. So, but look, as I say, my role, I'm not a developer and I'm not into, and I didn't really know what I was doing a year ago, 18 months ago, but it's definitely evolved and I've sort of taught myself a lot. So, and actually how easy it is to use technology within the business, especially in sort of an area as law. So, but yeah, it's me in a nutshell, really.
That sounds like you've got quite a challenge having to deal with people that are joining the organization, have expectations around technology, and then I assume a bit of a contradiction maybe with some people who have been in the firm for a while who maybe aren't as excited by technology.
Yes, no, you spot on. So you've obviously got sort of the slightly older generation who kind of look at apps and go, well, why do we need an app? Why can't I have a bit of paper? And why can't that just be printed? And then you've got sort of juniors coming through who are like, well, why aren't we doing this? Why aren't we using ChatGPT? Why aren't we doing this? And, with all these great ideas. And it's just kind of finding that balance within the business and working out what's going to work and kind of keep a hold of it as well. Because as you just pointed out, AI is sort of taking over everything, but we still need to keep control of these things as well. So that's where I come in. Try to anyway.
That's a very broad scope, Vix. So I'm excited that you're here to talk to us about all of the challenges and opportunities. So I guess you use Fliplet. You've been a customer for a little while now, maybe a bit over a year.
Just over a year.
Yeah. So why did you decide to ultimately take Fliplet on? What was it that appealed to you?
Yeah, so look, I'll give a bit of background here just to kind of, I think every business is going to kind of look at apps in different ways and kind of utilize them in different ways. And as I say, larger law firms are going to utilize them in probably different use cases as what I was looking for. So I was looking for an event solution and I'd used one previously. So it wasn't all foreign to me, but obviously when I first started using one, it was actually pre-COVID. So, things were slightly still limited. It was all kind of very new. And then when I moved over to Fox Williams, obviously then COVID hit. So it kind of put a bit of a dampener on kind of all my ideas moving into a new business, thinking, yeah, I can bring all these whizzy things and we're all going to get going and whatever else. So it was always on my radar and I kind of kept it there. So when obviously COVID and business travel started kicking in again, and one of our key conferences, which is the IBA, which is, let me just give you a bit background on that. So it's one of the largest conferences for independent law firms. And we always attend the annual conference and there's normally about a team of between 6 to 8 of us going. So it's a real business critical conference. So when that came back up and running, I was like, right, do I go head first right now or should we just wait a bit? So the first year we kind of got back into the flow of things and we kept things on paper, which was a challenge in itself. But then last year I just kind of went for it and said, right, let's get into this event solutions and let's bring on an app. So, as I say, it wasn't foreign to me. And then I suggested actually, let's talk about AI and innovation at a partners conference. And that's when I was greatly introduced to Ian and we sort of had a chat and you showcased what Fliplet does. And as soon as I saw the event solution, I was like, right, brilliant. This is kind of simple. It flows. It's going to start this journey with FW and innovation for me because I just need something simple and to download my ideas and kind of get working on that. So as I said, I chatted through my ideas with him and the team, and it was the creativity with me with Fliplet being able to kind of manipulate what was there and actually let me download all my ideas and can we create something and can we make this how we want it and can we brand it in how we want to do it and can this do this and can this do this? So, and the answers was always yes, which is with, with a slight caveat sometimes, but yes, it was always yes. So for me, it was just that. It was the element of being able to kind of download my ideas to Fliplet and the team, and the team are absolutely wonderful, and say, right, this is what I want to create, and how do we do that, and what is the easiest way of doing that, and how do I make everything kind of seamless for us, both internally and for the users. So, and kind of engaging other members of the team, which is like my IT guru Mark, who I couldn't have got through this process without, and just working like very collaboratively together on this project and with Fliplet, which has been completely seamless. So it's, yeah, it was just the element of being able to just say, Ian, David, Carl, I need this. Yep, we'll try and work it out. And you did. So it was great for me. And that's always what you kind of need with businesses that you're going to work for, especially on this fresh journey as well, into something in some areas that you're kind of a bit limited on in knowledge. So it's always having somebody else take control of that, which has been great.
Hmm. Can you tell me a bit about the actual features that that original app had and the impact that it had on the organization?
Yeah, so the initial build for me was it had based, as I say, had been based around sort of like the IBA and what I needed for that. So for me,
Mm.
it was hosting the agenda and everything else that I needed it to do. So it was always kind of based around focusing and streamlining them and where they were and what they were doing and how do we get there and holding all the information and everything else. So for me, it was always focused around that. But as that has evolved and it's turned into several other things and spin-off apps that we've created, and it's been a journey, I'll say.
Okay. That sounds really exciting. And it sounds like Fox Williams has been able to really kind of wrap their arms around what Fliplet's able to do. I think it relates very much to maybe your enthusiasm to try new things, and also, by the sounds of things, having a supportive team around you, not just on the Fliplet side, but you mentioned Mark as well.
Yeah.
Um, so what were you doing before you had this solution? Like you mentioned maybe you used some technology or didn't use some technology?
No, so before the solution, it was lawyers love a bit of paper. They love to scribble on a bit of paper. They love to print off everything and they love to mark up an SBA and everything else. So for me, unfortunately, for many, many years, it was done on paper. And it was, just to put in context, I think the last IBA pack that I had printed was about 180 pages. So but as soon as you printed that, it's actually out of date because the changes are constant. There's always something. As soon as I printed it to print, the next day something's changed. So it was never up to date, which is obviously a huge issue because you're then going back to pen and paper literally whilst you're traveling, scribbling over things to try and make things, up to date, and nothing's flowing through, and you can't update the team because they're here, there, and everywhere in a different city. And even though I'm normally on site with them, it's just very hard to control. So a lot of so the original build for the IBA was 100% based around the fact that I didn't want to print anymore, and I was like, I don't want to do this, and it's just not. I don't want to do paper anymore. So, and also from an ESG perspective for me, I was, we'd started to really focus on that. And I was like, we need to look at different ways of doing this. Um, but that obviously led then to our partners conference app, and how do we develop this for the wider partnership? How do we focus their minds so that there's not email traffic and things coming through and constant updates into emails? And, at Fox Williams, we actually have two inboxes. So we have an inbox for all our client stuff and all our kind of confidential stuff. So it was, how do we reduce this for them? And therefore, that's how I sort of came on to build the partners conference app in a very short time frame, because I thought, well, actually, we've got the conference coming. How can I focus information to them all into one place where they haven't got to scramble around, look for emails that were sent maybe 2-3 weeks ago, and they can just go to the app and everything's there and accessible to them. So, it's definitely was a transition to move them from paper onto this bit of technology, but it's been I'd say a lifesaver, not only for them, but definitely for me and my grey
Mm.
hairs. So
That's good. That's really good to hear, and I'm glad that it's resulted in like such a kind of positive impact, I guess, not just only on you, but also nice that you're able to have a positive impact on the environment and have a, kind of complement your wider firm strategy.
yeah, and I think many of the partners, and look, initially I was very quite apprehensive about rolling this out to as as I say, lawyers are well known for just wanting a bit of paper and being very stuck in their ways and fear change and everything else. So to kind of roll this out internally, especially to the partners, I was slightly apprehensive. It's very different rolling it out to 55 people as opposed to kind of 6 or 7 people that you work very closely with. Whereas the wider partnership, whilst I have relationships with all of them, they all work in different ways. So rolling that out and getting the feedback, such positive feedback of how it's just benefited them, has been really useful, which obviously I fed back to how we create this and go forward with this and how we'd and go forward with the development of it.
Hmm. Are there any other key features other than kind of removing paper that you've found particularly valuable since moving over and using, say, a mobile app,
Oh yeah.
as opposed to other technologies you could have picked?
Yeah, so for me, it was, I mean, it was wildly the simplicity of it as well for me. So the
Mm.
functionality of being able to just have the agenda in one place, being able to change those things, and these are just obviously obvious key features, but actually, as somebody who manages that team, it was key for me to have these simple things and then have the accessibility, the survey options, which you've mentioned. We've utilized that for our partners conference, which has been great because they've been able to do everything on the go. Um, One of the key features that actually I implemented for both the IBA and the Partners Conference app was the general notes section, and having the ability, and all the partners having the ability to just go into the phone after each meeting, whether that was at the conference and they're typing in their takeaways from each business session, or as I say, at the IBA, follow up. What are the takeaways? What do we do? Just clicking a button and it being saved into the app has been not only heaven for me because it's basically all the BD stuff done for when we get back, and also actually the BD team because they've just been able to download the CSV file, take that information and utilize it and really use it as a great follow up. So having all that information in one place has been great because even now with the IBA app, the partners still will go into the app now, and to say what we're nearly 8 months on, and they'll still go back and look at their notes and they'll say, oh, who did we speak to? What did we say? What did we agree? And they're on the go and they're just, they may be out and about. They want to kind of pick up a point with somebody else and they can just go into the app. So, these simple but yet effective tools that we're giving them is just making life easier for them, but also for me at the same time.
So, um, you mentioned a couple of times that lawyers really like paper, and you've clearly been able to convert them. Was there any secrets that you can share about how you've managed to get people that maybe initially were stuck in their ways to consider a new approach?
Yeah, so it was certainly kind of the Partners Conference app was very much a dovetail off the IBA app, where I was sort of sitting there procrastinating and I was thinking, actually, hang on a minute, I could utilize this and use a simpler form for the conference. So as I did mention, like I was very apprehensive about it because, as I say, getting them to change their ways is is a scary thing actually, even in my position still now. Like I was waiting for the barrage of emails of, can you just send it to me on paper? Like, can you just send it to me as a PDF? Um, but it was slowly kind of just doing it gently. And I think the first iteration of the Partners Conference app was very simple for us. And we've kind of kept that, but it was, we didn't really put a giant survey in there. We had a couple of questions that they could go in and just let them just keep the simplicity of the agenda, let it flow, and but did give the option of kind of a web option as well. So it wasn't all directed at the phone. So I just said, look, if anyone is struggling with the phone, like please do let me know and we can send you out a web option. So the option was there. And actually didn't get that much take up on it. So I don't know if that's because they didn't use the app until the day, but The option is there, and actually a few of them have used the web app purely for eyesight, and they just prefer to kind of work off a laptop. But the majority sat there in the room and said, actually, it's great that I don't have to have my laptop in front of me for the conference, and I can just sit there, and it's just easy for you to do this. Otherwise, I'm trying to do four things at once. I'm trying to speak to clients. I'm trying to do this. I'm trying to focus on the business session, and it doesn't work. So having it there and trying to just in one place has been brilliant, and that's, I think, was the selling point for this for me, just to say, look, guys, it's a chance to focus and you can just do it from there. So it worked really well.
Do you think peer pressure or maybe peer encouragement of seeing other people in the room using it helped? Or uh, did you have to get involved in teaching people how to use it? Or maybe, yeah, were people reaching out and saying, hey, can you give me some assistance beforehand?
No, so I think Ian actually played a huge part that we'd done the conference pre us sort of rolling out this solution. So I think they knew it was coming. They knew that innovation and AI is coming and that a change is coming and that we need to embrace that change. And how are we going to do that? How are we going to bring that into Fox Williams? What are we going to do? So I think those that were in the room who were very apprehensive about it, having those conversations and setting it up with ease has really helped. But yes, look, there are certain people within the business that I will get a message. We have a conference tomorrow. So I will get a message later on and be like, Vic, I still can't access the app. Can we go through it? Or where do I find this? Or even though you can talk them through it, and even tomorrow morning probably. But they the one thing I will say about lawyers is they will try. They will always try first. And if they fail, then they will come to me. But they do like to try. And if it's a more fearful thing for them, but they are embracing it. But I do think because we have junior lawyers coming through who are, as I say, embracing innovation and AI and kind of showing them as well, they're kind of just getting on board with it now. So I think we're onto a winner. Well, I'm hoping we are.
It sounds like you definitely are onto a winner.
Yeah.
So just in case anybody who's on today's session has any questions, we've only got a few minutes left before we wrap up today's session. So please ensure that if you do have any questions for Vix, you submit them. So Vix, you've mentioned a bit about the feedback that you received from different people. Is there any other feedback that you received that you think's worth mentioning?
So no, look, I mean, it was always going to be kind of the change management piece for me, and as I said, I was quite apprehensive in that first push of the Partners Conference app, but the positivity around the reducing of the email traffic, the constant email updates. Oh, this document's changed. Can it was always that for the Partners Conference, or oh, we've actually changed this session or done this. And I think, Ian, if you'd seen the pack that went out pre the innovation session that we did, it's madness actually now looking back, thinking how we rolled that out. But also the push updates. So for me, it was like the notifications. Everyone's found that really positive because you can direct people to certain things. So I gave everyone a kick on Monday because they still hadn't completed the survey. So actually, click on the notification, it takes you straight to the survey section. They haven't even got to find it. It's just there. So it's just little things like that, which is making life 1,000 times easier, especially for the partners. From an IBA perspective, the location, the maps, that was always great because they can go in and they can see where they are, especially in Mexico, obviously, where we were. It was just them being able to have all that information to hand. And it's just, as I say, that feedback and then kind of embracing that and the notes section and everything else and really getting into that has been great. And the feedback from that has helped us sort of develop this going forward and what we're going to do and what slight changes we may make to the IBA and the apps that we're building going forward and what that means for the business.
Well, that's a nice segue. So what apps are you intending to build in the future, and what's your progress towards that?
So I have big plans, Ian. I have big plans. Whether they get anywhere, but there are big plans. And look, as I'm getting into the swing of kind of this app building, and as I say, if we'd said this maybe, even though I'd done it before, it was very different. And I must say, pre-COVID, it was very different. It was a simple solution. The back ends weren't as easy. It was all just slightly, it was just disconnected slightly. So everything has come on, and the ease of that has made this 1,000 times easier in terms of what we develop going next. So look, for me, Partners Conference app, we've worked on it. We needed to rebrand it because we've just rebranded. That was the simple process. We've made a couple of tweaks, but nothing too drastic with the Partners Conference. As I say, it's kind of slowly but surely with them and just kind of keep it bubbling. The IBA, on the other hand, for me, the key piece with that is just ensuring that it's chaos. So I just need to make sure that everything is just simple for them. So
Mm.
we'll be including like an Uber button. So they're in their agenda. The Uber will automatically generate the address where they need to get picked up from or where they're going. So simple, but yet haven't got to come out of the app. They haven't got to go into somewhere else. We're also going to create a section where we've got business cards. They can just take a picture of the business card because people still love a paper business card. But it's stored in the app. So they haven't got to come home with 101 business cards and do nothing with them sometimes. So at least they're in the app and at least we've got all that information along the general notes in one place. So for me, they're the small little tweaks. Off the back of that, we are going to develop a broader BD app, which is going to be used for our larger BD trips. We have some partners in the firm who may go away for like a good week. We've got a couple at the moment for larger conferences and larger BD trips. And this is perfect for them because everything's there and changes are always happening, whatever else. So we're working on that. But I think probably the biggest development for us going forward and what we're working on with the team at the moment is our portal app. So essentially, the portal will host all our apps, and we're making this more a firm-wide initiative. So currently, it's just our partners and our HR teams and using the apps, but it will be the wider firm. So we've got 200 plus people now. So, the app we're building a directory in there, so it's easy contactable for everyone. Everyone's on the go now. Some people are working from home. It's more accessible. We're going to create QR business codes, which you alluded to earlier. So that's going to be easy for everyone. And obviously, the other part is probably our internal intranet on the go, which currently is just to say, unless you've got your laptop open, it's not accessible. So how do we make that easier, especially for new joiners when they're all a bit kind of like, I don't know what to do. And, and it's kind of actually, how do I access the intranet very easily? So a lot to get on with. And I have a day job. So this is part of it. But yeah, so we've got big plans, big plans.
It sounds incredibly exciting. And some of the apps that you're talking about sounds like they have the potential to really assist the whole organization to be more efficient, which always gets me going because I love a bit of efficiency. What are the main lessons that you've learned through your experience to date?
Mhm.
Is there anything that you're like, well, if I was doing this again, I might do this differently?
Probably wouldn't do it differently, but I think, look, as I said, it's the development piece. And I think like it was very daunting to me at the beginning. And then as you get into it and actually, nothing runs smoothly and there's always going to be little hiccups along the way. But say the guidance from the team and Fliplet and working with them and the chaotic emails sometimes at the weekend when I'm working on it. But there's always a solution and there's always kind of ways around things. And it's a learning point for me. So for me, it's kind of understanding that and growth in that and understanding what the key elements are for the business and how do we develop those to make sure that they're aligned and still relevant and what else are we doing and how do we keep building on that so that we ensure engagement. If we're going to roll out this portal, I want to ensure engagement. So how do we keep that going? But as I say, for me, the main lesson was don't be daunted by actually, even though I was daunted at the beginning, and kind of actually embrace it and how do we do this? And by me actually teaching other members of staff within the business how to use it, a couple of the HR team, and actually an EA actually has used it for MIPIM. So teaching her and how the back end works and actually teaching somebody else, you realize actually how simple it is and actually to not be afraid of it and embrace the all the intricacies of it and sometimes and actually understanding what it does and is great.
In relation to training other people or getting them kind of over the hurdles that you were just describing you had to overcome, have you found anything that works? Or is it just like dive in the deep end?
Dive in the deep end. But the thing is, I will say the back end of Fliplet and actually the data kind of and how to input the data is very simple and you can kind of do what you want with it and you can present it how you want to. So having that ability to kind of just go, oh, if I just do this, oh, that works. Okay, great. And just literally dive in at the deep end. But once you get into it and you're explaining it, and I was explaining it to my colleague and obviously Mark in IT working on it, it's just embracing that and going, okay, well, let's just have a look at this and see how this works. Or, oh no, hang on a minute, I've just deleted a whole section. What do I do? That has happened. And what did I do with that? But yeah, these things happen, but actually just not being fearful of it because there's always a way around it.
And when you're speaking to your colleagues that you know you're going to kind of expose to, say,
Mm.
Fliplet Studio for the first time, do you kind of just let them sink or do you try to be proactive in explaining some of these hints and tips?
Yeah, no, I sat with I sat with my colleague who basically used the IBA. We basically duplicated the IBA out for MIPIM, and I sat with her for a good hour, and we just went through it and kind of went through every single section and just actually explaining how it works, what sort of information to put in it, and but also wanted her to go away and sort of create her own hub for MIPIM and what her team needs for that. And I think it was very critical for that she did that rather than kind of taking what I'd done. And Fliplet solution allows you to do that. So no matter what you've got there, you can still create your own sort of sub hub out of that. And she made MIPIM app into what she wanted for it. So that and allowed her to embrace that, but gave her the key pieces that she needed to kind of get going, and it worked really well.
Hmm. And you mentioned Mark from IT earlier.
Yeah.
Are there any tasks that you've decided that IT should be responsible for them? It's not something you're taking on, or it's not something you're going to teach other people to do. You want to keep them centralized with
Yeah.
for example, an
So
IT professional?
yeah, so we've been looking at this because of more of the portal app, and I think obviously there's a lot more going into this in terms. And we brought on board our project manager for this as well to kind of because there will be a development of apps. The key is for us to roll out with those three core apps, but from there, we're going to look at departmental apps, but not create apps for the sake of creating apps. But certain departments, our compliance team, what can we integrate for them to bring into this? What can we create that's going to help partners do their jobs on the go? But each business service head will probably own those areas that they're going to, or HODs will own their areas. But it will be kept, within IT and our project manager and essentially me to kind of project manage these to ensure that, yeah, everything we're doing is relevant. Do we need this? We're not just creating something for the sake of creating something. We want proper utilization. We want people engagement. So, bringing on Mark, who is a wizard sometimes. But it's key because I can't do everything myself and I don't understand some of those intricacies that he will just know how to do. So, it's definitely key for me because obviously we wanted to kind of do this broader piece with the apps, but obviously there is the solution where you can just build your own and you have full control of it. So it's multifunctional, which has been great.
Are there any features that you've explored that you've decided, you know what, now's not the right time? This, for example, I know lots of customers regularly talk to us about integrations with CRM, integrations with other backend systems, but often integrations can sometimes bring complexity, which can, or maybe some restrictions as well, maybe inhibiting your ability to flex and change. Have you come across anything like that where you're like, we're not going to do that at this point, or actually we know this is complicated, but we think it's worth it?
Yeah, so I think your point around the CRM system, so we use Upper Sigma, and it's not that it doesn't integrate, but there's certain elements of it that actually, do we need to integrate all of it? What are the key pieces that we actually of the information do we need? What is it we're trying to achieve here? But essentially, for me with the apps, even just having the business cards in one place and being able to then take that information, whether that is a manual information, it's in one place. So it's actually, how do we simplify these things? Do we really need to spend a lot of time on the Upper Sigma piece right now when we can collect the data in a more simpler form for the minute because there's other key priorities? And also around compliance, it's a very complex kind of systems that they use, and there's multiple systems, there's multiple checking systems. How do we integrate that? And again, with the expense system, we use something called CR Snap. So, do I need to integrate something that's essentially already there, like to kind of come out, or how do I kind of simplify something that's going to assist this? So, there are things that are kind of bubbling, and that there are 1,001 ideas, but it's actually prioritizing what we need right now just to kind of do the right thing and kind of get us all going. And then I think it will just flow. And I do, but there are some that were like, how's this going to work?
Mm.
Which I think
No,
obviously most businesses are, and it's kind of actually what's the key thing for me right now.
yeah, I completely agree, and I think also you want to pick your battles, right? You don't want to kind of jump in maybe before the apps have proven their value and start to trying to make things more complicated when you could potentially like prove something out in a simpler way and then make it more complicated when you're confident it's something that's worth the additional complexity.
Yeah.
So in wrapping up, we're right on time. Are there any kind of key messages you would like to leave people with? Either people who are using Fliplet, but maybe you're like, this is the thing I've learned since becoming more comfortable with Fliplet, or maybe at the start of their journey, what should they be taking from you?
I think, look, at the start of the journey, always just think of the user. And I think that is the one thing, obviously, where I'd used an event solution previously, I had an idea of what I needed, but I thought about the user. So I knew that I was working with varying degrees of I love tech or I hate tech. So for me, it was kind of like, well, how do I adapt that to make it adaptable for everyone? So for me, yeah, the key thing to say is just, and the key tip is probably think of your user. Who is this going out to? What is the critical thing that you need to kind of get to them? And think about their needs and what they need rather than what you would prefer and how whizzy you'd want it to be. And then you can build on that, because then once they feel comfortable with that, you can then double it up and you can 1,000 times better, and you can keep increasing and working on that. And I mean, if I'd said to them a year ago, I'm going to create this portal and it's going to happen, they'd be like, what? The panic stations would have set in. So it was easy does it. And so we eased them in with the partners conference app and then the IBA app one. And then, we've kind of done these things and it's like, great. So now I'm just going to hit them with the portal and it's, yeah, we're all systems go.
It sounds amazing. It sounds like you've achieved so much in such a short period of time, and you have such amazing plans. And it doesn't really sound like there's anything that can kind of slow you down. So I think that there's probably quite a few people on today's call that are quite envious of the way you're structured and what you're able to achieve, Vix. So thank you so much for joining me today and
Very much. Thank you for asking.
sharing your journey. And yeah, I really appreciate it.
Pleasure.